Hi everybody, welcome back to my workshop. Today we're going to be talking about the Flex Innovations Piraña. How do you pronounce this? Today we're going to be talking about this airplane. And pardon my gringo dialect, but I believe the name is pronounced Piraña. So that's what I'm going to stick with for this video. Not only does this airplane have a very interesting name, but it also has some very unique features. You'll see that that is especially true when we start talking about the power system. So stay tuned and we'll dive into the details. First, let's cover the basics. The airframe of the Piraña is made of molded foam components. It comes from the factory painted in this yellow trim scheme. It is available in an orange version as well. And note that the top and the bottom have different patterns so that it provides good in-flight orientation. Most of the electronics that you need for this airplane are included and factory installed as well. That includes 2 digital servos that actuate the rudders and 2 more digital servos that actuate the elevons. Now let's talk about the Piraña's power system. Normally for a sport airplane of this size, you would expect to use a 3-cell or maybe a 4-cell LiPo battery of about 2200 milliamp hour capacity. But when you remove the battery hatch on this airplane, what you find is a 6-cell LiPo battery of 1500 milliamp hour capacity. So basically you have higher voltage and lower capacity. And this battery is connected to a 50 amp speed control, which drives a 1200 kV brushless motor. The included propeller is an APC 6.5 by 6.5. In static testing, this power system produces over 800 watts of power, which is an astounding number for an airplane of this size. Now, I'm sure those numbers change a little bit as the propeller unloads in flight, but there is no denying that this is a very potent power system for this model. If you remove this rear panel, you gain access to more of the electronics. Here you see the 50 amp speed control, and ahead of that is another included component. This is the FT Aura 5 Lite flight controller. And basically this is a board with gyros that helps define the flight performance of the Piraña. And from the factory, this board has 3 flight profiles programmed into it specifically for this airplane. And I'll go over that a little bit more when I talk about the flight performance of this model. And because of the way this board connects to the radio system, you have to use either a Spectrum satellite receiver or an S-Bus capable receiver. Now I'm using a Spectrum 9645 satellite receiver, which you can see mounted at the base of the starboard vertical stabilizer. And this foam component actually has a pocket molded into it, which fits this receiver perfectly and makes for a very nice and clean installation. If you plan to use an S-Bus type receiver, this shelf is removable and you can mount your receiver below the speed control. The Piraña is a bolt-together airplane, so you will not need any glue to put it together. Not only that, but there are very few components, so the entire build process is quite short. I did run into 2 minor issues when putting together my airplane. You'll see that there are pathways molded into the foam that are intended for the servo leads and the satellite receiver leads, things like that. And on the port wing, those pathways did not quite line up with the pathways on the port vertical stabilizer. I was able to fix that with a few quick swipes of my hobby knife. The other issue I ran into is that the rudders did not have adequate clearance and they scraped against the top of the wing. Once again, I got my hobby knife and trimmed away a little bit of the bottom rudder surface to get the clearance that I needed. The Piraña has a series of built-in LED lights, and these lights are powered through the balance tab of the battery. Now, personally, I do not believe that these lights are bright enough to fly this airplane at night, but the lights definitely help out when you're flying in low light conditions, such as dusk or overcast. When you're flying a belly lander like the Piraña, you're likely to break the propeller every now and then during landing. And this APC 6.5 by 6.5 is not really a standard size that you're likely to find at your local hobby shop. So I recommend that you order a few spares up front and keep them in your field box. One of the features of the flight controller in the Piraña is called Launch Assist. Launch Assist is enabled by holding the right stick of the transmitter in the bottom left corner for about 3 seconds. The airplane lets you know when Launch Assist is engaged by wiggling the elevons one time. When you hand launch the airplane with Launch Assist engaged, it works to keep the wings level and the nose slightly elevated while you throw the airplane. And it stays active until you touch the right stick again. So basically, you do not have to worry about having perfect launching technique or getting your hands back on the transmitter super quickly. And if you have any anxiety about launching this airplane, Launch Assist takes care of that. So I highly recommend that you use this feature. While we are on the subject of hand launching the Piraña, the written manual recommends using the molded in hand grips on the bottom of the fuselage to throw the airplane with the motor turned off. However, I think you should forget that and go with an alternate method that is outlined in a video on Flex Innovation's website. In this alternate method, they recommend that you grip the airplane by the leading edge of the wing near the fuselage, and you can grip on either side depending on your preference. Then you go to 100% motor power and push the airplane forward with launch assist active. When I use this method, I have had a 100% success rate with launching the Piraña. Let's talk about the flight modes that are pre-programmed into the Piraña's flight controller. There's Sport with no gyro, Sport with gyro, and then Advanced with gyro. Those first two modes are actually very similar to each other. They both feature moderate control throws and exponential settings. The primary difference is that the second mode engages the onboard gyros. In this application, those gyros do not self-level the airplane, rather they damp out any uncommanded motions that might be caused by rough or turbulent air. The end result is that the Piraña takes a smoother flight path. The third, Advanced Flight Mode, ups the control throws and exponential settings considerably, and then the airplane then becomes capable of some very crazy maneuvers. In both of the sport modes, the Piraña is fully aerobatic, but with its more subdued control throws, these maneuvers tend to be larger and more graceful. So loops and rolls, inverted flight, they're all part of the mix. I was surprised to see that this flying wing is actually capable of knife edge flight. It's even quite good at it. In the advanced flight mode, the Piraña becomes much more nimble. Full deflection rolls turn the wingtips into just a blur. The airplane is also capable of some crazy snap maneuvers and also very tight spins, either upright or inverted. An optional feature on the Piraña's flight controller is called air brakes, and when this is activated, both of the rotors turn in as you reduce throttle, and I found that this is a very helpful feature to slow the Piraña down for landing. While the Piraña has gobs of power, the current draw is actually quite reasonable, and this translates into good flight times. My normal flight times with this model are between 4 and 5 minutes. Those of you who tend to be heavier with the throttle should probably expect a little bit less flight time. With this much power on tap, there's really no compromise with the Piraña's flight performance. It is faster than most sport models. It also has incredible vertical performance. Now, at the same time, this airframe has a lot of wing area, so it really doesn't complain when you pull the throttle back and slow things down. This concludes my overview of the Piraña from Flex Innovations, and as usual, I will add more flight footage to the end of this video. Also, be sure to check out the written article in Model Aviation magazine. Thanks for watching.